Hi, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back and dissecting Charlton's 2-1 defeat at home to Preston. Not a result I was particularly expecting, not how the game started, but also with how results have gone around us. My confidence that was sitting in absolute sky
Doesn't
high.
take much for it to start dwindling away, does it?
No, I can see where the pessimists in our
Mm.
fan base have maybe
Got a
been
point.
coming from, albeit I still feel confident.
Yeah.
It wasn't an ideal result in any way. What was your take on the game?
Well, if we're gonna sort of split it into sort of sections, I think that first 20, 30 minutes of that game was genuinely enjoyable to watch. And actually, at that point in the game, we started really strong, which is somewhere we've sort of struggled with in a lot of games this season, where we've started really slow, and it's actually put us massively on the back foot. We've had a few games where we've conceded early, and that's then put us in a really difficult position because we're not a team that's free scoring. So we started really strong. We created some good big chances in that first few minutes, and then obviously the goal came, which really settled it all down. And then even after that, we still pushed on, and we were sort of dominating them. And it was strange because we had quite a lot of the ball, which again we're not massively used to. But then it was the same old story, which we've sort of, I think it's been the crux of our season this year, is just our chance conversion rate is so poor. And they're big chances as well. It's not like little chances. They're chances where you're running in on one, or you've got like an easy square ball to play and you just get it wrong. And then we get hit with the sucker punch, which was a bit out of nowhere, wasn't it? And it was a loopy header. It was a really horrible goal to concede, actually. And then from there on, we just sort of buckled a little bit, didn't we? And then it just sort of petered out. They got more and more on top of the game, and then their goal was a counter attack. But we've got to be more wily than that, though. We've got to be more. We've got to be more aware of the fact that we are desperate to get a point there, at least.
I think it's just such a shame with, as you say, how the game started, because there was such an opportunity there, and we kind of allowed them back in. And we know throughout the course of this season that we are a team who will not consistently play for 90 minutes. We will go up and down, but the way we react to stuff sometimes and how we can go from looking so good to so poor so quickly, it seems like there's a bit of a mentality issue there with... the problem is, I don't know if it's just with certain players, because it seems like the whole team just... When that head drops, when something doesn't quite go their way... They don't seem to have the best way of handling it. And I don't know, is that a question which I know we've had many a time over this season, but is there still a question over leadership and experience within that squad? Because we look at players like Doherty, we look at players like Jones, who should be bringing those players together. And I wonder if in that game we had a player like a Cody. Does that maybe change?
I think
with
it helps.
Experience?
I think it helps. My biggest thing when we allow ourselves to go off the boil and sort of allow teams to dictate the play against us, I still think the biggest problem we have is just getting control of the ball in the middle of the park. Because as soon as we lose that control of the possession, we lose the control of sort of the attacking impetus on our side of the pitch, we then allow teams to sort of get on top of us and dominate. And actually, even Preston, who aren't like the most free-flowing team you're going to come up against in the Championship, at times we made them look really good. Like, we made them look like they were had a lot of space, time.
But do we not do that against pretty much most Championship sides? I think even the ones...
That's because our midfield's been weak the whole season.
But I think it's the midfield, but I think across the pitch sometimes it's not just the way we play, but we do look, even when we come up against teams who are in bad form, right down in the relegation zone, the actual play throughout the game, pretty much every single team this year, I can't think of many.
When we played West Brom, they were absolutely on the ropes, and they were like, that was like a must-win for them at the time. And we made them look like Brazil,
But we do that, and I think there's such a gulf in quality of experienced Championship players or Championship quality players, and even, as I say, and I think that you can look at that both ways, because I think that can show equally the other side how impressive of a season we have had to actually be where we are when we keep coming up against these teams who we say, oh, look how much better they're playing than us, and this, that, the other. We're still picking up points, and we're still in what I would describe going into the final 4 games a very comfortable position, or a very strong position, if you want to put it that way. I think you can look at it both ways, because I think we've got friends, haven't we? We've spoken to who see what Nathan Jones has done with Charlton when you look at our starting 11 as a really incredibly impressive kind of feat.
I don't think anyone can argue that Jones has, for the squad that he has and the sort of limitations that are in that squad, he has done a fantastic job. And the issue is the job isn't done yet, and that's the thing. If you throw it all away at the end of the season, because we've gone through spells this year. We started so strong. We had that really horrible dip sort of around Christmas time. Couldn't buy a win, and then we managed to turn it around. We got Cody and players like that in, and actually then got a grip again. And so we managed to swing it back round, but it is slowly feeling like it's slipping again, and at a terrible time.
But do you know as well, even with that, and I think you've always got to take it with a pinch of salt, because you look at Portsmouth recently, who were in free fall, they then go and get a win. We've only pretty much got to get one win in there to confirm everything with absolute, kind of definite. But I thought even it creeped into listening to Nathan Jones post-match. He was kind of getting frustrated, and you could tell it was almost like by now. And it was only a few games ago he was saying we want to see how high up the table we can get.
Change the tune.
And today it was like almost like that's the conversation I want to be having right now. But now we do still need that one win. We do still need a bit more. And yeah, it clearly is something he's obviously not going to be happy with. But I think it also goes back to how important that 7-point week was, because when you look at our form overall, if you take that a little bit out, and I know that's very easy just to say, but my God, that has given us that blanket, because if not, we'd be in an awful position.
And actually, we picked up some crucial points against clubs that we never expected to get points off this year, and that's actually saved us a little bit, because I feel like in those crunch games this year where especially teams around us, like, we have underperformed, and it's felt really frustrating, because they're the games where you beat teams around you, all of a sudden you really do push yourself out, but we just haven't been able to do that this year. And I think, like I say, partly I think that's down to personnel. I think it's partly down to tactics, and it's partly down to a bit of a mentality thing maybe this year. But we have learnt a hell of a lot of lessons this season, and please that we stay up. Once we do confirm we've stayed up, we have learned a lot of lessons that we will take into next season, I'm hoping, and we will be a much more resolute team.
I think we will have learnt lessons, but we also know where we need to heavily invest in the summer and strengthen. Yeah. I think that has to come into the midfield and attack, definitely, as a pretty priority. And I think there is definitely some defensive bits we need to add to, but that is very low priority. I think for this season, it has been so apparent, hasn't it, that is an essential.
Well, we know how many clean sheets we've kept, so we've been solid at times this season, but they're the parts of the pitch we really need to strengthen.
Well, before we go into the game, the starting lineup, I think one that we both text straight away, and especially one player who we were excited about, but another one who I thought, do you know what, I'm quite interested to see what he can bring from not just being a 20-minute cameo. Obviously, we had Rankin Costello coming into the lineup, and Fevrier as well, who I thought, when you look at them as two players, one, I thought, okay, well, we're going to try and get our foot on the ball a bit more, because I think that is what Rankin Costello brings as a centre mid, and I thought it was so apparent. We're going to go into a bit more detail of the game, but Fevrier as well, I thought, brought that kind of pacey, and this is before a ball was even kicked. I thought he potentially, we've discussed the fact he's not electric, but he brings that kind of like stocky, dangerous, a little bit of that, like we've said, Thierry, smallish, kind of
quick
you're
feet, and he likes
you're not
to step
100%
over.
sure what he's going to do, and I'm not even sure he knows what he's going to do, and that can be quite dangerous.
But for even, like, obviously we'll go into his performances, but during that game, he displayed exactly what he can bring to the side. Like, he brought, like you said, that unpredictability, that danger. He has the sort of fearlessness in terms of, like, when he fronts his man up, he will take him on, and he will get the ball across as well.
Do you think as well it kind of maybe showed a future where we have that slightly more athletic pacey on the right and left?
Yeah.
Although TC plays as this hybrid striker who drops out left, I do think it also frees up a player like TC as well, because they don't just have to mark out that one pacey element, that other tricky element having in. And I think it's what was so successful when we did have Thierry Small last year. One of the great successes was the fact you had that outlet down both sides, and you weren't always relying on that one player to play well.
Well, how many times this season have we said we've relied so heavily on TC? Like, literally everything's gone down the left-hand side when he's been playing out wide. The other side of the pitch, we had Bree playing there, who was obviously, like, nowhere near the pace levels we needed for that sort of style of play. So we've been lacking that, and actually Fevrier is a player that brings that. So he's on loan, obviously, so I don't know if he'll end up coming there permanent or what's.
And I'm not 100% sure he's the answer, because
No,
I do
I'm
look at
not.
him at times, and as much I've actually, when everyone had the laugh of when he kind of signed, because it was such a bizarre signing, I actually think he's brought a bit to this season. He's done all right.
He's done all right, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure whether I see him as the answer of being that championship quality player in that position, but I think it does highlight the fact we need other options.
I'd like an experienced, pacey player with some skill would be good, but that time will tell, won't it? And like I said, we've got to get that job done first in terms of staying up.
Yeah, let's get that one ticked off first. But let's go into the game then. So as we've discussed already, one that we started very strongly, which is very uncharacteristic of us. I think before the last home game, we hadn't scored till about the 50th minute at home.
I heard Lloyd Jones's late goal in the first half against Southampton was the last home goal.
It's
in the first half.
Yeah, it's like
Crazy.
Really quite horrific how bad we are in first halves, and especially starting games, because we know so many times it's taken us till the 70th, 80th minute to start kind of clicking into gear. It was the opposite. I think ranking Costello was a huge part of that, and I don't think it just comes down to the fact he's a bit more of a technician in the middle of the pitch. I think the runs he makes are a bit more dynamic, but I also think just the way he picks up the ball, plays passes, everything about it highlighted to me that potential evolution of what we need.
Also, how nice is it to have a midfielder with close control? Fuller brings it when he comes on. He's got very quick feet, very close control, and can spin players and things like that. Rankin Costello is very similar in terms of when the ball gets to his feet, he's got the composure to be able to sort of spin people, to feint one way and go the other and break through the lines. And actually that's something I've been so sort of banging on for a long time, that we desperately need that.
Do you think, looking at his performance today, do you think you look at it and think actually he could be, because I think Coventry's one who I find a bit of a dilemma at the moment, but I look at Rankin Costello and think he could play alongside a slightly more dynamic, quicker centre mid who's also creative, with a Sonny Carey sitting in front, and he could be that kind of anchor, kind of holding mid, maybe taking the Coventry role next season if we get other players into that central midfield.
I think he is somebody that has experience at that level. He's clearly got a good level of technical skill, and the technical skills are really important at that level, because they're the sort of players that create chances either for themselves or for others around them. And that's, I'd love to know our stats on chance creation this year, because we have created some chances.
It's not good.
No, I'm sure it's not. But we have created some chances in games, but they're few and far between. And when we do, they're usually quite clear cut. But our ruthlessness in terms of finishing chances has been diabolical too. So it's been a real sort of perfect storm, actually, of us being very uncreative, but also not being able to take our chances. But what Rankin Costello does bring is, like I just said, those things which we have desperately missed. And you're right, actually, he would be a player that you could build a bit of a midfield around next season.
I just worry because of his pace that maybe that box-to-box isn't his strongest asset, and I wonder if sitting in that slightly deeper holding mid role, sitting in front of the defence, still having that ability to move forward, but being able to spray the passes out, break through the midfield with that slightly more creative one on the right of him or the left, whatever, and your Sonny Carey role in front could be really quite nice.
It could.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one to watch for the summer and see whether...
Well, and clearly long term, he is one of the players, because I think there's been quite a lot said by Nathan Jones of the fact that he was signed on a 4-year contract, and he is a long-term kind of...
Which I'm glad about that, because I do see some big potential there, actually.
Yeah, well, let's get back into the game. From early on, as I say, we hit the game running. First chance, the Doherty shot.
Yeah, he hit it.
Caught it really sweetly, and it was I thought with it was a really great way to start the game, because it just got the fans going. It got, as I say, we're not used to seeing that early on, and I just thought it started to set the tone.
Yeah, definitely.
Of what kind of came to follow. Yeah. The next one, big chance. TC, who I thought once again was looking dangerous in that first kind of period. Cross with a final product, which I thought was really nice to see. I thought his crossing was definitely better today. Crossed in. I can't remember if it took a deflection or not, but it came to Rankin Costello. Yeah. Heads down and painfully, a bit like the Doherty game before, cannoned back off the post.
Inside of the post as well, so it was really unfortunate, actually. But I mean, he sort of directed his header, and if it was like a couple of inches to the right, it's in. And the keeper was rooted, I think. But.
Do you look at that kind of a chance and think they are the kind of chances we need to be putting away more? I know it's not a bad header, but you do look at it and think, do you know what?
And they're annoyingly, they're the sort of chances that we've actually conceded goals, you know, where other teams have taken those chances, and we have just been really, really lackluster when it's come to those this season in general. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But again, that was just another moment where you're like, okay, we're really on top of it. We are pushing on.
And we carried on. Preston didn't really seem to get the pace of the game. I thought they looked extremely poor in that first kind of period. And where does the Charlton goal come from? A long throw.
Yeah,
it's pretty much every time at the moment, isn't it? And it comes across, flicked on.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think it might have been Ramsey.
Ramsey, maybe, yeah.
And then it hit a defender, I think, maybe.
Yeah, and it was an open goal. Good. At least he put it in the back of the net. We've said so many times.
Yeah.
But I think everyone would have been pretty furious if he missed. But I thought really deserved from him, because, as I say, it's that really strong start, noticeably in the midfield, hit the post. And when you saw that go in as well, as I say, it had a feel that, do you know what, is this going to be the day, a bit like maybe the Blackburn game or whatever, where we actually maybe take that, move on from it, and we do start to kind of push forward in the game a bit more.
Yeah, and like I said, we'd already created some big chances before that goal went in, and actually we went on from that to still dominate the game, because what you do find sometimes is that you'll see an instant response from the opposition. We didn't really see that from Preston. We continued to sort of push the ball forward.
And we had the TC chance.
Yeah. TC, again, it's like the end product thing. To be fair, he sort of tried to drill it with a bit of whip into the bottom corner.
And then we had the Amari Bell, who just kept running and...
Yeah, that was a nice little bit of play from... I think he played it into the feet of Costello, and then he managed to tee it back to him, and then he was literally in. It
really annoyed me why he didn't shoot.
Yeah.
I don't really get it. And I know it's like...
Do you need a bit of fish out of water?
Maybe, but it just annoys me on players, because it's like, you are still a professional footballer. You can strike a ball.
Yeah.
You can strike a ball, so just hit it. And it's just like, it's almost like a fear of letting others down.
Yeah, exactly that. And also it's like a sort of, he doesn't want people sort of saying to him, oh, you should have played that across maybe.
Yeah.
But when he actually ended up going so close to the edge of the box and like sort of in towards the goalkeeper, that he made it difficult in the end to actually get a good cross across. And then it all fizzled out, didn't it? So, but yeah, we continued to knock on the door, and then that goal they scored was so frustrating.
Yep, so ball out wide with Potts, really easy, cross in. Pretty good header from Dobbin.
It was quite clever.
It was quite a clever header. I thought it was quite a deft touch, and it was nothing the keeper could really do about it. But it was so against the run of play. It was frustrating, because I kind of look at it and think, do you know what, should we be... I thought the defence of Potts, we gave him a lot of time. He just it's just very easy for him to get the ball in. Decent header. But that is the moment that changes the game. For me, that is. And the goal goes in. I don't think Preston then look amazing. I thought we went into an incredibly scrappy period of the game, but everyone, and that was us and Preston, didn't seem to be able to put any passes together. We're passing it weirdly, like
Bell was like hitting it past the centre back and like
nearly missing and going out, and then like misplacing passes, playing passes into players who were already being pressed. So we'd end up with just kind of losing possession. That was going back.
Well, I
and
think Chambers had one where he got it played into him in the middle, and just he took a terrible touch or tried to pass and just misweighted it. And we were creating some sort of really big errors that could have really cost us.
I think the only positive I can look at that is I think both teams were kind of doing that, albeit it felt like Preston was starting to grow a bit.
Yeah.
But then the half-time whistle comes, and I think it comes at the perfect time. We can regroup, we can reset, and we can go into the game. And I thought that second half, just everything about it just didn't quite feel right, albeit we had a little period in it. Preston came out wanting it more. They were winning headers. Everything felt off about that second half.
But the funny thing is as well, I've seen this online a little bit after the game, and people saying like, you would have thought Preston were the team that were desperate to get the points to stay up, because actually we're the ones that need those points. Preston don't actually need the points.
Do you think some of that comes down to, and I wonder if this is the rocket that's needed, do you think there's anything in the players thinking we're safe now?
I hope not, because we're not. And actually, you'd be pretty naive to think.
I just wonder if the arrogance of being so far clear.
the only thing that does worry me sometimes is I look at a few of the players and like you do wonder like especially loan players worry me a little bit because they're at the end of the day like whatever happens they're off back to their club at the end of the season. Now I'd like to think that professionals aren't in that headspace, but you never know. Like for example, I saw like, and I don't, because I actually think he had a brilliant game, February. But at the end of the game, he's all smiles, sort of looked quite relaxed, and I know he's in his post-match they interviewed him as well, and he was just sort of like, yeah, we need to move on to the next one.
But there probably is a side of him that he's had a pretty good performance, and as you say, there maybe isn't as much emotion attached to it. Let's say you'd like to think, and I think what Nathan Jones does quite well, it's one of the reasons why he doesn't really like
he said that openly,
and I think he's been quite open and honest about it. But yeah, I just felt it was a second half where they really came on looking much more confident.
Yeah.
And I think the warning signs were there, and that was the thing that was concerning me, and I don't think we picked up on that, and that's what worried me the most, because the goal, let's move into it, came from us being, was it a corner or a
I think it was either, it was a
corner or a free kick or something like that
from the back.
And the ease at which they hit us on the counter, but just before that,
they've done it a couple of times, didn't they?
Potts on that right, TC was not tracking him at all, and he was getting the space, and it was so clear and so obvious. And I don't know if that should be. This is where sometimes it worries me about the leadership in that team, because I do think there's someone who has to be saying, whether it's management, whether it's captain or whatever, but there's got to be a football side of it where we're looking at it saying, it's so clear what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't pick up on it. They break on the counter so easily.
Yeah.
And as soon as that ball's played out to the right to Potts, because they've got a huge overlap, it felt like you just were waiting for the back of that net to kind of ripple.
Yeah, and I think, again, like I think Bell is a player that still looks quite, as the game goes on, he gets quite jaded, and I think this is just a byproduct of him just being a bit run into the ground.
Yep.
And I think
I was really surprised to see him in the starting lineup again. I don't know if that comes down to,
he does look tired though, doesn't he? Like,
is that all? Because I think there's been a noticeable drop off in especially the last game against Watford and this, where he does look leggy. He's making little mistakes and errors, and I don't think he was the worst centre back today, but he wasn't far off it. He didn't feel that confident.
But when he's up to his like full speed, he gets on the ball and like dribbles it out and looks a bit more positive. I think at the moment he's just looking for the side rule pass. Trying to keep it simple, but I think like ultimately we haven't, because like injuries to like Burke and players like that, the actual rotation.
Yeah, Burke was on the bench, I'm guessing.
Shishenje's been injured since he's come in, so maybe we're just limited, and I'm not sure he massively trusts Gillespie, which I'll probably go along with. To be fair.
I think if Gillespie was starting, we'd be having pretty similar concerns, albeit.
So maybe the options are limited to actually swap him out, but there are a few players in there that maybe are probably looking like they're at the end of the season. Like it's one.
But you've got to, at this point of the season, I completely understand that, but you've got to find that second win. You've got to find that fight and desire.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're not quite there yet, and we just need, it's not much, and we're just putting so much additional pressure on ourselves, because the realistic side is you're not going to be less tired in the next game. It's only going to keep going.
Yeah.
And mentally, you've also got the physical kind of tiredness towards the end of the season. But when you start going in with the added pressure, that can really start to get difficult. And it's just, I think it's frustrating. And as I say, I believe that second goal especially was so avoidable. And it was so obvious in the lead up to it, and that's what frustrated me the most.
Yeah, we were really naive, I think, like the sucker punch. And like I said, if we had to come away from that game with a point, it's still, a point's massive at this time of the year. Like that would have taken us up to the 50-point mark. I think we were on 49, aren't we? So that's a big sort of mental boost. But to throw it away the way we did is really frustrating, considering how we started the game. And it's one of those where like we've given ourselves some really big games to come now. And
the goal goes in. I thought afterwards, I don't think we reacted amazingly well, but then we had one spell of about, I don't know if it's 5-10 minutes, but we did start to create chances.
I think Fuller coming on, to be fair.
They dropped it. I thought he had, I don't think he had his best game today. I think he had a few mistakes in there, and I don't think he didn't have that electric dangerous side that I think we've
He had
seen.
a few moments on the right-hand side where he was sort of overlapping, and he managed to sort of dribble it to the edge of the box. And
I thought it was all
drill
right.
the ball in.
Yeah.
We have to also remember he is 18.
No, I don't, and that's where I say
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to sit here and say there's many games he's come on, and I think no matter what this season, it's about bedding him into championship squads. It's in about lots of different things. I don't think there's any particular criticism to throw his way because he is so. With TC, you've got the 100-game experience.
Yeah.
You can be critical of that.
Yeah.
With him, 100%. I'm not going to be critical on it, but I don't think it was his best game.
No, I don't. But I think I think the point I'm sort of trying to make is those changes that Jones made. So he brought Godden and Fuller on, didn't he? They did sort of show us that he's looking to look at putting some more attacking players on the pitch and try and push on, because ultimately that's what we needed was obviously a goal, and those sort of types of players are the ones that are going to create chances.
And I think there was a couple of chances in there. There was I think the biggest one of all was Fevrier bumbling his way through in any way possible. I don't know how he got there, but he did. Absolutely pushing it across a box, and their player
didn't know where it was going, did he?
Well, he absolutely punted it, and luckily his keeper was right in front, who knew nothing about it. On another day, that is an own goal.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for us because the keeper was just in the right place at the right time.
Dykes had a chance.
He did, where it sort of looped over the top. I think they had a Gibson, I think his name was, made a couple of crucial blocks.
Well, there was the final one, I think, with Dykes, where he was literally in on goal, and there was this brilliant covering tackle. I want to say, I think Godden had a chance as well. I think
there was a few in there
There was a few in there, but it felt so similar to like the Bristol City game and other games where we huff, we puff, we don't take the chances, and then they were trying to hit us kind of a little bit on the counter, but the game just then.
Well, also they towards that end we really did push everyone forward to the point where Mannion was going up for the corners and stuff, but we could have easily conceded a third. Like there was a couple of chances for them where they just, if they had played a simple pass across, they're scoring. But yeah, you're right. Huffed and puffed, couldn't blow the house down, and that's really has been the story of our season.
I think an interesting one just on that. What's your thoughts towards the fact that by the 76th minute we had chucked such a great number of strikers on the pitch? Because I find this one a bit bizarre, especially when the final one of those in the 76th minute is Lieburn. It feels like we've got a lot of target men. We've gone very one-dimensional. And I understand in certain games that's the way you've got to play, but I cannot get my head round not bringing on a player like Kelman, who we know also has a link-up play aspect of it. And I think you still, even when you're chasing a game, chucking on a huge number of strikers can actually sometimes come to your detriment because you've got no one creative behind. We'd already taken off Rankin Costello. We also then didn't have like a Kelman. Kelman could have dropped deep and been that more middleman playmaker, and it just felt like we went so one-dimensional. I think sometimes it goes in the detriment of trying to chase the game.
Yeah, I think he goes for the height option with Lieburn once we're at that sort of Hail Mary stage where we're trying to launch the ball in the box at every opportunity. And that's the way we tend to finish games is like, okay, let's absolutely flood the box and hope something falls to us, which in certain games it has. And I think that's maybe where he thinks maybe we're just going to nick a cheap goal here.
But is that not like the 85th minute?
Yeah, no.
That's where it annoys me how early we'll resort to that being we need to chase the game.
That
so
probably
we'll chuck on as
probably was premature. Probably was, but I can sort of see the thought process behind it, but whether it was too early in the game, that's up for debate.
And Kelman not coming on? A player who we know can get a snapshot goal like a Godden. Do you think he's gone, well, I've already got Godden on the pitch?
I was just about to say, like, Godden and Kelman are probably seen as a very similar ilk sort of player, so maybe he's thought, I've got Godden's already on there, let's go for a bit of height, and then maybe, like I said, from the long throws or the corners, Lieburn is more likely to get on the end of it. I think that's probably his thought. Well,
frustrating, as I say, the final corner came in. I was really hoping for that Mannion come across header. It didn't happen, and the final whistle goes, and felt like one of the more frustrating final whistles of the season, and I think so much. Preston at times looked okay, but it felt like such a wasted opportunity.
They were there for the taking, like,
Yeah.
especially how slow they started. If we had just capitalised and got a couple in that first half,
their heads could have gone.
that would have been it.
Yeah.
I think the game would have probably just seen itself out, and we then would be sat here saying, "Yeah, we're safe. Like, we're pretty much we're done and dusted." Now we're in the opposite side of that, where we're frustrated with the result. We've piled the pressure on ourselves to get something next weekend, which is now a massive game.
Yeah, and we'll go on to it later, but Sheffield Wednesday, as much as everyone sees it as the 3-pointer banker, they don't. I mean, they've just drawn to Coventry, and they quite often have been like a 1-0 loss or a 0-0, and like.
Yeah, but also they've been in, because they've set the record now, 37 games without a win, which is the worst record ever set. So
that's got Charlton coming all
well,
over it.
It has. At least they've got the record, so we weren't going to break it. But what it does do is, like I said, like they just drew. Was it who they just drew? They drew with Coventry.
Yeah,
Coventry.
So
yeah, exactly. So they're able to get points against teams that are like very good, like the top of the league. So we're in a dangerous position if we're going to sit back, and I've seen a lot of people, and we're probably maybe even guilty of it. We've earmarked it as the game to get us that 3 points. That's dangerous, like really dangerous territory now.
It really is. Well, look, we are going to go into that one a little bit more in a bit. Let's go into the individual performances. I think, like we've said a lot recently, I think there was a lot of passenger-y kind of performances, or just middle of the road performances. I thought players like Carey looked a bit better today.
Chambers deserves a bit of a shout out. He had a few moments that were a bit shaky. The one I said about where he lost the ball in the middle. But he did play a couple of beautiful passes down to TC, actually, through the lines.
He plays, and what we've noticed, I think he's been kind of doing this bit more hybrid, where he drops into the middle of the park a bit more, and I think we noticed it against Watford.
He has definitely got, that's probably his strongest part of his game, is the ability to sort of put his head up and play a good pass.
Yeah, and I think with Chambers this season, as much as we've had our thoughts towards him, I do wonder, and I've wondered this with a lot of players, how much we play to his strengths, and whether in another, in another team, he might look like a much better player. And I think there is technically a very good player in there.
To be fair, when we have loan players and they sort of end up going back to their club, I always do keep a little eye out, so it'd be interesting to see how he does develop in the future. But
no, definitely. But I think there was a couple of what we would think are noticeably poor performances. I thought Amari Bell was extremely close to getting in there, but I think I'll give him the. I think we both felt it, that I think it's not necessarily...
It's a product of what
it's a product of his kind of fatigue, and I'm not sure in an ideal world, I think someone like a Shishenje would have been stepping into that position if we had him there. But one that I can't be that kind of lenient on, and I thought had an extremely, extremely poor game, Kane Ramsey. I thought he was really terrible.
He's had a few bad ones recently.
Yeah, I thought it felt like he was a bit turning a corner, but his passing today was absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah,
it was
bad. In dangerous positions as well. If he had got them right,
and teammates he was putting into just awfully like stinky positions. Like he was like fizzing passes into players who were already being pressed.
Yeah,
he was overrunning it. He didn't look confident on the ball. I mean, I just thought every aspect of that game looked really just off.
Yeah, he had a poor game.
And I thought he's a bit of a frustrating one, because at the beginning of the season I thought, you know what? It's the kind of season I could see him having his breakout, and are we going to keep hold of him next season? I think he's really dropped off in a whole sense.
Yeah.
He's not quite, and I know there's elements of adapting to the league and never played this level, and a player who's come from not long ago, even lower divisions.
Harrogate, from, wasn't it?
So I think you can give him a bit of a saving grace there, but he's got some work to do for me to kind of get back into
the thing
good
that
books.
The thing that sort of buys him a little bit is that his raw athleticism, his pace, his ability to recover. When he does make errors, he does usually trap back and get back in position, which
do you think it's just low confidence?
Maybe, and I think maybe it's a product of I think he looks his weakest when he's. Well, I say this, he's looked strong in the past, but at the moment he's looking weak when he gets the ball and dribbles it forward and looks for the pass. Because I think he gets to a certain place in the pitch where he's not blessed with the best of passes. So when there's not a lot on offer, he tries to force the pass, and that's where we saw him lose the ball quite a few times today in those positions. But yeah, he wasn't on it at all, and actually he's quite fortunate really that the times he did lose the ball, it wasn't punished a little bit more than it was.
Yeah, I think he was quite fortunate with that. But as I say, for me, it was a really noticeably poor performance. And for Amari Bell, I say you can give that leniency due to the fact it seems quite clear that he's fatigued. But I don't think Kane Ramsey has that excuse.
But yeah, we spoke about how well he started, and like I remember commenting on some stuff early in the season saying like, yeah, no, Ramsey's like one of the best right backs in the league, which at the time he probably was. But he's massively tailed off, and I think he's had a few things happen this year, hasn't he? The red card he got him in against Millwall. I think did he have an injury as well part way through?
Injury, also lost his place in the lineup. It seems like it's been a bit of a turbulent season.
I think that has probably impacted.
I think he's got a big one next year, depending, and hopefully all in the Championship and everything's all good. But I think he's got a big one next year where he needs to start that strong and get back into that rhythm. And I wonder if maybe having a little bit more depth and competition there as well, with like Sachenje coming in and being more of a stable part in the team, maybe that will bring the best out. And we've said that, and I think in a few positions that competition might do well.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a good day, not one for him to remember. The other one, who is a player we've been extremely complimentary of, but I do think we need to highlight when it's on the poorer side, and I thought that was Lyndon Dykes. And for me, it wasn't, look, we weren't blessing with playing the game to maybe his absolute strengths, but what I thought disappointing today is he seems to be a player who adapts very well into games, and when maybe the target man side of it's not working, he will drop a bit deep, or rather than keep flicking it on aimlessly, he'll kind of just start playing his game a bit different. But it just felt today like, once again, it was a bit off. It was getting flicked on, and I thought there was a noticeable frustration in some of his reactions. I thought he let get the better of himself today, which meant that it leaked into his performance a bit, finishing was a little bit off. It just, everything felt a bit...
Well, there's been certain games where he's been super clinical, and like that West Brom one was a prime example. He had like one chance and took it. Today he had a few chances, some big chances actually, and some half chances, but he was sort of a little bit more not quite connecting with things, or letting the block get put in before he pulled the trigger and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say he's one that we could single out as being sort of a bit more off it than normal, because we're used to seeing him play really well, and actually to the point where we often were saying how he was a standout, like week in, week out, and we know he's been a massive asset to us.
Do you think there was I'm not sure if I'd say lucky not to get it, but do you think there was a question over a red card?
Yeah, it was pretty...
do you know what it really reminded me of? And I look at it and think, if we were there saying that against Sheffield United, was it the Tanganga one?
Tanganga, yeah.
If that was a red card, to me, Lyndon Dykes.
I actually think the Lyndon Dykes one's probably more of a red
worse,
card,
because I think
it was front on.
To me, I think if the ref gives that, I don't think you're questioning much. And even when you look at it, I don't know if I'd say it's complete intent, but it was a bit strange. He definitely
proper forearm, wasn't it? Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't
good.
His best.
I think ref gives that. I don't think there's many arguments. I don't think
the ref wasn't that far away from it.
No.
Yeah, we were quite fortunate there, and that's just maybe another thing where he got a bit sloppy, like. Where
was
usually
that frustration coming out, maybe,
but usually we say how he's so clever in the way he backs into players, wins fouls, all that sort of stuff. He definitely wasn't as on that side of his game than we're used to seeing, and that's probably why we've sort of maybe singled him out, because he set a high bar. So now,
and he's got enough in the tank to realistically not going to be too critical. But it definitely was a poor performance, and I thought one of the noticeably poor performances of the game. Well, let's move on from there into positive, and I do think there was a few positives to take. Probably from our conversations we've had so far, it's going to be pretty obvious towards who that might be. The first one, a very easy one, albeit there definitely was, of the 60-ish minutes he was on the pitch, a highlight of that first 30, but Joe Rankin Costello. And I thought, as I say, not to be the broken record, but I thought what he brought to the game, not just in his goal, it was not just hitting the post, it was just everything about it. It just, to me, so highlighted everything we've been missing in that central midfield, but also where we can go with it, and the fact that we can't just have one of him, but increasing that championship quality across the whole of that midfield, how we will see what we all see as this defensive, pretty torrid football sometimes. Sometimes that's a byproduct of the quality of players we've got rather than the system we're playing.
Yeah, so I was really delighted to see him on the team sheet, and I think I texted you when I saw the lineup come out saying, it's so good to see him like in the lineup, because we've been waiting for that. Like, we know what he can bring. And it's the thing that he brings is something that we've been lacking so much this season. But I don't. I've called Doherty out a few times this season. I think we both have, like in certain games, and I like Doherty a lot because of what he brings, but he is so limited. And I think what you just said hit the nail on the head in terms of like it can't just be Rankin Costello. We probably need two of him, like two players that are similar. Where Doherty falls down is that he is limited. He gets to a certain part of the pitch. He looks a bit, he looks like he's struggling, like in terms of looking where to play the pass.
I thought it was quite interesting though, because we said about this before, and it was quite interesting to see the amount of fans who maybe defend him.
A lot of people rate him.
I think with him, what he does give, and why Nathan Jones does like him as well, is he has got that raw passion. And what you can always say with Doherty is the technical side pushed aside.
Yeah.
As a player, passionate, and what he'll put into the performance is pretty much always there.
But it's why he's captain, and it's also why he's regularly in the team, because he does bring that.
Well, and I think it's why, the more I think about it, I'd like to still see him in the setup. I just don't think... I think there's games for him, and I think there's games where it works, when you have to do that dogged, dirty work.
Yeah.
I kind of think sometimes with him, games that have any element of rivalry in them, like the Millwall games, he's the kind of player that's good for that. I think I suppose it's the fact that realistically we're relying, because no one really has creativity apart from Rankin Costello, maybe we always want something that we're not going to get out of Doherty, but actually putting him back into his more natural position or what's expected of him might see better. And I think as a squad player, he definitely does.
But this is where when Rankin Costello comes in, for me, it massively highlights his shortcomings, because all of a sudden you've got a player in there that, and we saw it today with Rankin Costello's performance, like you said, he was all over the park. He got himself into positions. He had the header that he nearly put away. He then had the goal he tucked away, which he had to be in the right place at the right time, which he was. But on top of that, we've already talked about how he's got such good close control. He looks like he wants the ball as well. I think at times some of our players, especially when we're under the cosh, they go a bit hiding sometimes in that middle, and they because they know when they get the ball, they're going to struggle to look up and play the pass. Whereas Rankin Costello will either, if he can't play the pass, he'll turn and run at people as well. We don't have that really with Doherty. You don't see him running at people often.
Do you think when you look at performances like Rankin Costello, and we're discussing about the traits of Doherty, where do you think that leaves in the future? And I think a conversation we wouldn't have been having that long ago, but definitely with the amount of times he's been dropped and maybe some of the conversations we have around, where do you think that leaves Coventry in the conversation? Because I really like Coventry for what he does, but I do wonder if you want to progress forward, whether he's the right player for us in what we're looking to do.
I think it depends on the system that Jones wants to play moving forward, because for a long, long time we were Doherty, Coventry in the middle, weren't we? Those two were like sort of metronome in the middle.
I wanted Coventry, Rankin Costello and Carey. I've given up. I know it's not going to happen this season.
But with Coventry in the side, he, even for me, like over Doherty, he brings the terrier nature which Doherty has. But I think he is a bit more competent on the ball. I personally feel like he can spray the ball
at times. At
times, he's still not the player that's going to really push you on and be creative in the middle. And maybe that's because that's not really his role. His role is more of a break-up play, track men, do the dirty.
Do you see Coventry long-term going into next season, when we're talking about this midfield? Do you see Coventry being still a player who will be strongly in the starting line?
I don't know, because I didn't think I'd see him drop out the side much this season, but all of a sudden we're starting to see him sort of.
I just wonder if Rankin Costello is the one who drops into his position with, as we've said,
maybe
broken record, but with someone else alongside him. I wonder if he becomes, and then I think in that situation you probably have to let go of either Doherty or Coventry.
One of them I think will move on, and I don't actually know.
I wonder if Coventry's just got maybe as well a bit more value to him, and maybe we do look at it as the right time to pass him on.
Summer's going to be really interesting for that midfield, because I think we need drastic improvement in there, which means quite a few new bodies coming in. Then where does that leave the players that are already there? So,
well, there will be, won't there? There'll be players in there, and I think I saw a bit of a conversation around other players and other positions, and I think it does open up, because you can't just endlessly sign without
you've got to
moving on some players, and I think,
trim the squad.
as I say, potentially that is. As much as a player who I really like, I wonder if that is a player who maybe.
And let's not forget as well that these are players that have brought a lot to us. Like, we're where we are now because of those players. So they had their moment.
But sometimes there is the moment, even if they are good enough, maybe the system you want to go to doesn't quite involve, and maybe he is too good to just be sitting on the bench, not playing much. So it'll be a very interesting one. To finish off the good performances, I thought TC had quite a good game, albeit once again went a bit missing after the goal went in. But I thought someone who consistently, even in the poorer times, put his all in, was dangerous, created, was Fevrier. And I thought it was a really... Do you know what? For someone coming in to the team as a bit of an unknown quantity, it felt like he had a bit of a point to prove of, this is my opportunity.
He took it, though, as well, didn't he, I think? Because he hasn't started... I think he might have started one game this season.
It might be his first. Yeah, I think
I'm
it's
not
his
sure.
first, yeah.
He's come on in cameo roles, and when he's come on the pitch, he has been dangerous, and I've wondered whether that was what he was brought in for, as sort of an impact player. But to start him was quite bold, because we haven't seen him start, like you said. He definitely proved a point in terms of, like you've already mentioned, he gave us a threat down the right-hand side, which we've desperately lacked this season. But not only that, he's unpredictable. He is not afraid to take a man on. He regularly beat their left-back, played some really nice balls across the box.
He's quite clunky, isn't he? He's
He
very,
is,
like,
and
clumsy.
But because he's that stocky, like you said, sort of Thierry, small, almost not quite a Dharma Traore, but he's bulky. Like he's quite a big boy. But so he can sort of bounce off people and he can sort of bundle his way through, which is quite nice to see, because it does show somebody that's willing to sort of put their body on the line a little bit. And we saw that through that chance you spoke about in the second half, where he sort of bundled through and actually...
Well, that's where I think he drops into being more positive player, because I do think even to the end of the game, albeit it looked like his legs went at one point, and we've said he's a strange level of pace, so I don't think he's electric.
No.
As the game went on, he looks like...
Yeah.
He looks like he's like limping as he's
running.
No,
but what he does have is quick feet, and he's able to do a step over and just nudge the ball past the defender and get.
I really like him.
No, I do. I rate him, and actually, we all questioned when that decision was made to sort of bring him in for Tanto. It's worked quite well.
Well, on that question, I suppose that's where it comes down to. What do you think he's brought that maybe Tanto wasn't?
I don't think they're like for like, because I think Tanto's maybe a bit more of a central sort of attacker. So what Fevrier has brought is that more attacking wing play sort of style,
like wing
attack.
back, maybe.
Yeah. Tanto was sort of used, I know, for Stockport, he's more of an out and out striker, and maybe I would argue Tanto's got maybe a bit more pace. I don't think there's probably much in it.
Do you think with Tanto maybe it's because of his positioning, he's more likely to get into the positions as well, where I think Tanto's biggest weakness, without a doubt, is his finishing.
Yeah.
And it seemed like because of the way he plays maybe that more central role, he's more likely to get into those positions, whereas with a player like Fevrier, he plays in a very similar... I think they've definitely got similarities as players, but because he's more out on the wing crossing balls in, he kind of suits things a bit better, and you don't maybe notice his shortfalls as much as maybe you do a Tanto.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think he was brought in as a more attacking winger style player. So they're the main differences. But if we're going off today's performance, he's arguably sort of pushed his way into like the starting lineup, because I wouldn't mind seeing him in the next game starting because of his performance today. I would argue that he was man of the match, and that is good going for somebody that's only come in as cameo sort of roles. So let's see if he can sort of be quite a crucial player in those last four games. Yeah,
we're definitely more impressive. For everything we've seen of him, more impressive than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Kind of having seen the signing towards the beginning. So, but yeah, no, very good performance. So, well, there it is. Preston taking 6 points off us.
Yeah, really frustrating, to be fair, but it's one of those. They're not. To be fair, when you see Preston come up on the fixture list, you're always like, oh, it's a horrible fixture. Like, you never know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah, and they're a seasoned championship team.
I mean, they're not pushover. They're quite a horrible game. But just the nature of the loss today is really frustrating, and we're now going to go on to what we've got coming up. But
well, let's move into it. So we've got a week to prepare. And I'd say arguably, as much as I say, I still feel very confident towards it. I feel like we need the 3 points with having only taken 2 from the last 5. We go to next Saturday, the 18th of April, Sheffield Wednesday away. And I think we've added an extra layer of pressure that was so unnecessary to this game. I think now it is becoming... I'm not sure if I look at it as a must-win, but it's not far from it.
We weren't helped today with the results that we saw come in. So Portsmouth getting a late winner at Borough, and then you had Who's the other one? There was another game where
Oxford
Oxford
won 2-0.
So Oxford and Portsmouth picked up points, which leaves Leicester still in the crap because they lost, I think, to Swansea. But all of a sudden now you got one other team fighting to stay in that sort of part of the league, and we're the ones that are slowly getting dragged down because we're not actually moving now. We're just stagnating. That's why this game's huge.
Well, I think as we've discussed before with Sheffield Wednesday, it can be so easy to look at it as the banked 3-pointer, but when you look at it, like over the last couple of months, like Millwall beat them 2-1, Sheffield United beat them 2-1, Southampton beat them 3-1, Ipswich 2-0, Hull 3-1, but then there's draws in there against Watford. There's draws in there against Leicester, which arguably is probably a bad result, but and then Coventry away, like they're not a team who maybe for where they are and easily their heads could have gone. There clearly is still a pride there, and we also know from the game we played against them before, for all their turmoil as well, there is also players in there that do still hold quality. And
Jeremy Yates playing up top, he's decent.
Yeah, so they've still got players there, albeit mixed in with the youth, which is where I think they are going to give up mistakes. They're not going to be a perfect performance, but you've still got to respect it. You've still got to go out there and do a job.
They're professionals, and at the end of the day, a lot of them are championship players. Like Liam Palmer's been there for donkey's years. Like he's a player that on his day can like really do some damage. And actually, there's also players in that team that are playing for a contract for next season, or so they're not just
looking to go elsewhere. And
this is it. So like they're not like, and like I said, they're professional footballers. They're going to want to win games. Like I know they haven't won in 37, but up comes Charlton. You never know. It's got that written all over.
It really has. Like any club, we are just the one who will go and make a tit of ourselves and do something silly.
It's away from home as well, which again is a different element. And our away form's not been great this season, I don't think.
But at the moment, though, arguably away is probably better for us than it is at home. Because say we're in this torrid run of form at home, and I just wonder maybe actually the away element of it might go in our favour towards this. But
it's going to be a really interesting one, and I think we've said already, we've piled the pressure on hugely. Now it's actually up to the players that the sort of veteran style players maybe to step up, and like your Goddens, for example. It would be written a little bit that he pops up to be the man to sort of, because he's got so many important goals for us in the past. But not only that, he's a big time player. So I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know if he's.
Well, I was going to say, starting lineup wise, of what we've seen go out today, what would you expect to see in there? Albeit there's a lot of question around availability as well.
Yeah.
But is there any changes you'd be looking at thinking?
I to be honest, I didn't think because we started so well. I was like, actually, those changes have really worked. But obviously, it fizzled out in the Preston game. Rankin Costello, I'd like to see start in the middle again, because I think he brings us that attacking element, which we're going to desperately need, because we need to get off to a quick start in that game.
Do you think the pace element of the two kind of more pacey with Fevrier and TC's the route?
Possibly.
Or do you think maybe a Kelman Dykes or?
I wouldn't mind seeing like two out-and-out strikers in there if we need the goals.
I wonder if it's just one of those games where bringing TC on as having that pace as an impact where everyone's tiring.
Then to go Dykes and Kelman.
Yeah, especially with the fact they've got young players who maybe, as the game goes on, may make a few more mistakes.
I'm not sure we've seen Dykes-Godden partnership yet, have we? That could work. You never know. But it's a bit of an interesting time of the season to start.
I think Godden's a super sub at the moment. I'm not sure he's a starter.
Yeah.
For me, I think I see it as, do you go? And I suppose there is a question. Do you take... Because I think he's had so many good performances, but do you take like a Dykes out and go Kelman TC? There's an argument to say Dykes doesn't have to be an absolute kind of guaranteed starter, and maybe the style of football might be more suited to that. I don't know.
It's good. I couldn't tell you, and with Jones, you never quite know, do you, when he's going to switch it up. So
I think the one thing you can say is he wasn't happy at what happened today, and I wonder if that will be a rocket, albeit once again in a lot of positions. I'm not sure he's blessed with choice of what he can do. So
no, we are limited in certain areas of the pitch, but I actually, do you know what? It sounds strange, but I actually don't care what starting lineup we put out. All I really care about is that we put in a performance and that we actually step up. You know, we're counted to a man, because actually these are the games that matter, like these big games where you could just take all that pressure off, put it to bed. We are going to stay up, and then we can really all as a fan base sort of switch off a little bit, because
Well,
we don't want to be relying on Ipswich and Hull.
Well, 3 points would, albeit not mathematically, if Oxford lost, and I think let's bring up the league table now. I'll bring it up on the screen now. But when you look at it, we're sitting on 49. Oxford are the ones in the relegation on 44. Leicester now on 41, which
They're getting cut.
Yeah, it looks pretty perilous. They've got to hit a run of form, which I cannot see happening at the moment. Portsmouth on 45. So a win in our next game takes us to 52.
I think
If Oxford lose, that would mean we have an 8-point gap with 3 games to go. So we are then, albeit not mathematically, we are safe.
Almost there. Yeah. But I think, have Leicester got Portsmouth next? I think they have.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
So we actually really want Leicester to win that, I would have thought, because Portsmouth are the one that are like pushing up.
Yeah.
So I think we probably would.
Look, I think we've got to a point where, to be honest, whatever they start doing, we just need to win. If we win Saturday, we're safe.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think we've got to look at it and actually say, do you know what? Who cares what results happen around us? We need to be in control. And the fact we're actually talking about what other results might happen means
we're scrambling a little bit.
It shows we've had a monumental failure, because at the end of the day, we should have by now be having a conversation to say, let's test Debbie Fuller in the next game. Let's do this. Let's do that. And we've kind of allowed ourselves to get in this position, which is frustrating. But
I think Nathan Jones did bring this up in his interview at the end, actually, and he said, like, we've actually been fortunate with what's happened around us, because if we hadn't had the teams really falling off a cliff, actually we'd probably be in a lot worse position we are now.
I guess that's a relegation scrap, isn't it? It's always gonna go in certain ways. Well, there we go. So, thank you very much for listening today. As always, if you do like the videos, please do remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And looking forward to hopefully.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward.
I don't know. I'm looking forward to hopefully afterwards being able to say finally Charlton have got over the line. But let's wait and see. Hopefully some smiles on our faces in the next one. Buckle up. We'll see you on the next one.